Good morning. It's going to be a lovely but hot day. And the next 7 or more days are going to be the same. According to KY3, it's the place to be. So, no rain. That's over for a while. And it will be hot and dry. But we will survive. I don't take the heat as well as I used to. And but this week is going to be camp. You guys pray for me. I want to be the camp pastor at the youth camp up in Pulaski County, and that starts Monday. And it'll be the same thing as last year. If the reception's bad, I can't get the program out because I'm there from Monday afternoon until Friday morning. So Monday we'll have a program, but don't know whether we'll get it out or not. If the signal happens to be strong that day, we'll get it out and be glad for it. We finished up chapter 27 in the book of Isaiah yesterday, and I was glad to get through with that. There was a lot of hard things to talk about, and this prophecy is no better in the respect that it deals with hard issues like invasions and that sort of thing, and they're never fun. um, just a piece of background. I want to remind everybody that the captivity of Syria took place, the Assyrian captivity of Israel, the northern kingdom, took place over a period of several years. 732 BC is the date given for the fall. But many historians say that 732 was the beginning of the invasion, and that's when Assyrian Empire started deporting people out of Israel as slaves back to the different countries that they had conquered. And the actual fall of Samaria didn't take place until around 722 BC. But this prophecy of Isaiah's covers the whole time from before the Syrian invasion to after the Syrian invasion, which tells me that he might have been writing as early as 740 BC. He might have been writing this after the Assyrian invasion of Israel had begun and many cities were taken, but Samaria had not been taken yet. Some date this prophecy to around 725 to 730 BC, which would be after the invasion began. Good morning, Trent. God bless you. Either way, whether you have an early date or a later date for Isaiah, it is before the Assyrian invasion of Judah, where God turned back those armies of Sennacherib who were led by the heathen general Rabshakeh, who yelled at him and told him he was going to kill them all. And then God turned him away and killed 185,000 Assyrians in that of his army. So this prophecy goes back to a time when the capital of Samaria had not fallen yet. And it starts out in verse 1. Isaiah says that the leaders of Israel, of the northern kingdom, are a bunch of drunks. And he's going to say, woe unto Ephraim. Now, Ephraim was the younger of Joseph's sons, but Jacob gave Ephraim the blessing of the firstborn because he was going to be a greater people. Many times in the Old Testament, Israel, the northern kingdom, is referred to as Jacob, Israel's old name before it was changed to Israel, Jacob's name before it was changed to Israel, the grandson of Abraham. And sometimes the northern kingdom is just referred to as Ephraim because it was the largest of the 10 tribes that split off in the Civil War under Solomon's son Rehoboam. God gave him Judah and Benjamin and Jerusalem and the southern kingdom, which they began to call Judah, after the tribe that David was from, of course. The northern kingdom, God gave those 10 tribes, the other 10 tribes, gave them to Jeroboam, who was one of Solomon's former generals, who had run for his life during Solomon's lifetime and came back, and God gave him 10 northern tribes. But it was referred to just in shorthand as Ephraim or Jacob by many. And that's what Isaiah does here in chapter 28, verse 1. Woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which are on the head of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine. This is your beautiful, like Satan, their beauty had blinded them. They think they're mighty. They think they're powerful. They think all is well, but all isn't well, because what Isaiah says is you're too drunk to know what's happening to you. And drinking was a problem, and they were whoring around and drinking and having a big time during this period of prosperity in Ephraim, the northern kingdom. But whether they were physically drunk or not, what Isaiah is saying is you're drunk on your own pride. You're drunk on wrong ideas. You're drunk on things that are not going to help you. I'm going to describe a little bit of this period. See there, back in 2 Kings chapter 17, it says, in the 12th year of Ahaz, the king of Judah. Ahaz was the father of the great godly king Hezekiah. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Elah, to reign in Samaria, Ephraim, Israel, over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him, which means he was bad, but he wasn't as bad as Ahab. Good morning, Tyler. God bless you. You're not working on an air conditioner somewhere? I'm surprised by this. As hot as it is, I figured somebody would have an air conditioner out and you would be working on it. If it happens to me, I'll certainly be calling. Against him, against Hoshea, the son of Elah, reigning over Samaria, which was the capital of Israel, northern kingdom. Against him came up Shalmaneser, a king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. See, the first thing the Assyrians did is they made a tributary out of the northern kingdom. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, the king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria as he had done year by year. Therefore, the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in a prison. Well, Hoshea was trying to get out of being a tributary, a vassal state of the empire of Assyria. So they went and they tried to make an alliance with the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh. When Israel didn't pay the tribute, they locked the king up and began to take Israel captive. Excuse me. Then the king of Assyria came up through all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. And in the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Holah and in Habor and by the rivers of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. Why? Good morning, Kevin. Why did God allow that to happen to children of Israel, the Hebrews, the sons of Jacob, the 12 tribes, 10 of them? Of course, by this time, many of them had drifted down into Judah because Jerusalem was where the temple was. And I think that's one of the reasons why the northern kingdom was so evil, is most of the people who believed in God, they drifted down to where the temple was. They escaped. Now let's see if this is familiar to you, because I've been telling you and teaching you from the beginning of these lessons years ago that God judges his people for 3 reasons. 3 reasons only. There are no exceptions. It's always the same. And he judged Israel because they went a whoring after other gods. They sacrificed their children, and they believed the lies of false prophets. Then he came and he judged them with the Assyrians. He judged Judah with the Babylonians, the Chaldean army. The Babylonian Empire under Nebuchadnezzar, he judged Judah because they went a whoring after other gods. They sacrificed their children, and they believed the lies of false prophets. He is judging the United States right now because we've gone a whoring after other gods. We sacrifice our children, and we believe the lies of false prophets. But here is what 2 Kings has to say about why he carried Israel away into captivity. And as I said, this period of captivity took place over a long period. They invaded, took people captive, they captured the king, they put him in prison, they started reducing cities, and finally they brought down and captured and destroyed Samaria. In verse 7, for so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God. They sinned against the Lord their God. And what they call the 10 tribes, Ephraim, Israel, Jacob, they never returned from Assyrian captivity. Oh, some of them did, individuals, but the restoration of Ephraim, the northern kingdom, has never happened, not even partially, not like the returning from Babylon under Ezra and Nehemiah. No. Judah came back, Israel never did, until modern times. And now all Jews are regathering in Israel. That is the super sign that we are very near to the return of Christ. So it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, and had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods. went a whoring after other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, child sacrifice, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things which were not right against the Lord their God. And they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And they set them up images and groves in every high hill, and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom the Lord carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. For they served idols, whereof the Lord had said unto them, Ye shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, Turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I command your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear me, but hardened their necks. Like to the neck of their fathers, they did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. They followed vanity and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them that they should not do like them. And they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshipped all the hosts of heaven, and served Baal. Remember, Jeroboam set up the temples at Bethel and Dan, and he made the golden calves for them to worship, and said, These are your gods, O Israel, that brought you up out of Egypt. And here's the child sacrifice. They went a whoring after other gods. They sacrificed their children. Here you go. Verse 17, chapter 17, 2 Kings. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire. They killed them and burned them on the altar. Child sacrifice. Their children. They caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire. God won't accept the shedding of innocent blood. He always judges. Why we're still here and not a crater, I can't tell you, because I would have destroyed us a long time ago. Good deal I ain't God. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. But look here. Judah lasted for another 140 plus years, but they eventually got theirs. Verse 19, chapter 17, 2 Kings. And Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made. The Lord rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of spoilers, until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord, and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did. They departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. chapter 28, Isaiah, verse 1. Woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which are on the head of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine. Behold, the Lord which hath a mighty and strong one, which as a tempest of hail and a destroying storm, as a flood of mighty waters overflowing, shall cast down to the earth with the hand. And Isaiah 30, I usually remember this because it's like a gun, 30:30. Well, the key verse, the money verse is 30, but let's start back in 27. Behold, remember, Isaiah's making this prophecy against the northern kingdom that is still there and not fallen yet when Isaiah prophesies this. Behold, the name of the Lord cometh from far, burning with his anger. The burden thereof is great. His lips are full of indignation. His tongue is a devouring fire. And his breath, who can withstand the Lord? Remember in the last chapter, God says, who would set the briars and thorns against me in battle? I would go through them. I would burn them together. God's saying, I'll burn up their weapons, and I'll burn up them too. Who's going to come against me? Behold, the name of the Lord cometh from afar, burning with his anger, and the burden thereof is great. His lips are full of indignation, and his tongue is a devouring fire. And his breath as an overflowing stream shall reach to the midst of the neck, to sift the nations with the sieve of vanity. And there shall be a bridle in the jaws of the people, causing them to err. God makes people do what he wants to do. He caused the king of Assyria to come and blow down Israel like he was a fire-breathing dragon. Nothing can stand against the Lord. No one, no thing can stand against the Lord. You shall have a song as in the night when a holy solemnity is kept, and gladness of heart is when one goeth with a pipe to come into the mountain of the Lord, to the mighty one of Israel. In other words, when I do these things, you people down there in Judah, you're gonna remember that I'm God. There was a reason beyond the wickedness and the idolatry and the fornication and drunkenness of Ephraim. There was a reason beyond that God destroyed Israel by Assyria and left Judah for another 140 or so years. Why is that reason? One, the temple was there, the place where he had promised to put his name, the place where the Holy Ghost actually lived and dwelled at that time between the two cherubim, or his manifestation where they could see the Spirit of God or see that he was there. He was there in the cloud, the Shekinah glory cloud that rested above the mercy seat in the Holy of Holies, above the Ark of the Covenant. That was part of the reason. The other reason is there were still godly kings to come when Isaiah wrote this prophecy. There was Hezekiah. And then Manasseh, his son, who was the meanest man in the world until he discovered the Lord after he had been taken captive and released by Babylon. he turned to the Lord with all his heart at the end of his life. And his son was no good, but his grandson Josiah, he would be the last godly king. And then it was Josiah's uh, sons and nephews that became the last kings of Judah. And of course, they were wicked. A couple were better than the other ones, but they were all lost. They were all ungodly men. But you see, there were godly kings to come. And because they would have godly kings, and because there were still people in Judah who believed and who worshiped God in spirit and in truth, there were still some there. And so he saved it, just like he told Abraham. He says that in judging Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham said, well, what if we find 10 righteous there? And God says, I won't destroy it for the sake of 10. And that tells me, at least in likeness and in theory, I don't know the exact number, but when God destroyed Israel and its capital of Samaria, he couldn't find 10 righteous people. And I'm sure that's true, because, of course, this prophecy was directed to the drunkards of Ephraim. But here's the song that the people who love the Lord shall sing even during this time of destruction. You shall have a song, verse 29, chapter 30 of Isaiah. You shall have a song as in the night when an holy solemnity is kept, and gladness of heart, as when one goeth with a pipe to come into the mountain of the Lord, to the mighty one of Israel. That would be a time of worship, going up to the temple. And the Lord, here's verse 30, and the Lord shall cause his glorious voice to be heard, and shall show the lightning down his arm, with the indignation of his anger, with the flame of the devouring fire, with scattering and tempest and hailstones. The ones who trust God in Judah would know that it was God destroying Assyria, and not the God destroying Israel and not the Assyrians. That God used the Assyrians to destroy Israel, but it was all God's doing. Remember, God can make anybody do anything that he wants them to do, even people who don't believe in him. I've quoted this to you before, but we will look again. Isaiah 46. I got old man hands this morning. They can't turn the page. Verse 9. Isaiah 46. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Here we go. Calling a ravenous bird from the east, the man that executeth my will, my counsel from a far country. Yea, I have spoken it, I will also bring it to pass. I purposed it, I will also do it. This means that God causes people to do things to achieve his goals, even the wicked, whether they know it or not. So Judah will know when Israel is destroyed that even though it's the Assyrians who look like they're burning Samaria, it's really God doing it. It's really God destroying the northern kingdom of Israel and taking them into captivity. It is the hand of God. That's what verse 30 is about. Verse 31, for through the voice of the Lord shall the Assyrian be beaten down, which smote with a rod. In other words, he's saying that they're going to get theirs. They'll get theirs too. Don't worry about it. So it's both a fear and a comfort to those who trust in the Lord. Woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which are on the head of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine. Behold, the Lord hath a mighty and strong one, which as a tempest of hail and a destroying storm, and as a flood of mighty waters overflowing, shall cast down to the earth with the hand. In other words, this mighty army of the Assyrian Empire. What was the guy's name? King Shalmaneser. Yeah, Shalmaneser was the king of Assyria at that time. He was preceded Sennacherib, the one who would come in less than 20 years, and 12 years, and besieged Jerusalem, was Sennacherib. But this was Shalmaneser. And it says that he's going to cast down with his hand and destroy. It will look like Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, is destroying Israel, is reducing Samaria, destroying Ephraim, but it's really the Lord doing it. That's Isaiah's point here. It might look like a mighty army, but it's the hand of God. In verse 3, the crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, they shall be trodden under foot. These proud people who think they know better than God, they go down and make a covenant with Egypt. But they can't trust Egypt, as is explored later in this chapter. This is the great chapter where God accuses them of saying, we have made a covenant with death. This is that chapter. You've heard that phrase before. They have made a covenant with death. This is that chapter. And we will get there, but it'll probably be a week from now or more before we get there. But we will get there. Believe me, beloved. The crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, shall be trodden under feet. And remember, it's really God that's trotting them underfoot. Even though he is using Shalmaneser, the great king of the Assyrians, their mighty army. In verse 4 of Isaiah 28, and the glorious beauty which is on the head of the fat valley shall be a fading flower. Remember verse 1. Woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which are on the head of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine. Of course, God is going to come and blow them down. And he's going to use the Assyrians to do it. And this is the result of it. That glorious beauty, verse 4, when Ephraim is trodden underfoot, the crown of pride and the drunkards of Ephraim who wear those crowns and imagine those vain things, they will be trampled to the ground. And the glorious beauty in verse 4, talking about how pretty Ephraim was and how wonderful and rich. You know, before the Assyrians invaded, Israel had prosperity to match that probably of the ancient Chinese, with all of the gold and the silk and everything that they had. Ephraim was terribly, terribly prosperous. It traded through Tyre and Sidon in what is now modern-day Lebanon and on their own coastal areas on the Mediterranean Sea. They were on the major trade routes that came both from Europe and Asia into the Levant. Israel was right in the middle of things, and their capital of Samaria was right in the middle of the things. Now, they actually competed with Jerusalem for trade routes because you could go straight across Israel from the Mediterranean Sea to Syria and what is now modern day Iraq, and just keep walking until you came to India or the Himalayas. You see what I mean? It was a great trade route. They were very prosperous. They were rich. And that's one of the reasons that we learn in the books of Hosea, and in the book of the prophet Amos. That was part of the problem that Israel had, was their prosperity. It's like Satan. He was deceived by his own beauty. We're told in Ezekiel 28. Thy own beauty has blinded you. You don't. Well, Ephraim was so rich and so prosperous that they just said, hey, this is going to go on forever. Nothing can ever stop us. Who does that sound like to you? It sounds to me like the United States, the kingdom which is under judgment of the Lord right now. So, you see, church foundations, good old Steve, my friend, Pastor Steve, is watching. I tell you what, Steve Youngblood is a good man. I love him very much. He does a great work that I get to have a small part in. I'm very grateful to the Lord for letting me participate in his ministry. But you see, God's going to blow all that beauty away. They were so prosperous, they thought nothing could happen to them. It says, in that glorious beauty. I remember Judge Judy, she said one time, she said, beauty is temporary, but stupid lasts forever. Here's what it reminds me. And the glorious beauty, which is on the head of the fat valley, shall be as a fading flower. It echoes and confirms verse 1, as though it had already happened, you see. That's the thing about prophecy. When prophecy from a true prophet of God, you can write it down as if it's already happened. It will all come true, exactly as the prophet said. And that's how you tell false prophets from true prophets. What a true prophet says comes true. In every minute detail, there are no variances, there are no discrepancies, and there are no exceptions to this rule. Do I believe prophecy? Yes, I do. Do I believe that God gives prophecies through people? Yes, I do, because I've experienced some. But you know what? It's really weird. The prophecies that he's given me won't help or hurt anybody. It's like he's telling me stuff in advance that's going to happen. So you can judge for yourself. Like he's never told me that I need to take my family and move to New Zealand to avoid the effects of the Great Tribulation on the United States. That hadn't happened to me. But he has told me of a couple of things that would happen in government that came out to be exactly true. The caveat here is that there's absolutely nothing I could do about anything that he told me except watch and see if it came to pass. I could have no influence over the events whatsoever. And so I'm not sure of the purpose of that prophecy, except that it happened and it's real. And now when something happens that I feel like God is telling me something specific, I write it down and I hand it to Dr. Adrian, and he opens it up after the events have come to pass, and we will see whether the prophecy was true or not. So far, I'm 2 for 2. Well, actually, I'm 3 for 3, but it doesn't matter. I'm talking about the prophecy that the Lord gave to the people who were in the office of prophet. like Isaiah. He prophesied in the king's court. He told the king what God said, or Gad or Nathan to David. Now, in his own sense, David was a prophet in himself. He had revelations from the Lord. He wrote them down. And many times where he inquired of the Lord himself, and God answered him, specifically in an audible voice. Prophecies always come true if they're from God. That's my point. There are no exceptions. Now, my detractors, my critics are always saying I shouldn't say that, but I can freely say that about the things of God. He does things a certain way and he doesn't change. He never changes. That's why we can count on him. He says, I'm the Lord thy God, I change not. So this prophecy Isaiah is writing ahead of time. He's writing as if it had already happened, or if you can see it just like a movie. Verse 4, and the glorious beauty which is on the head of the fat valley shall be as a fading flower, and as the hasty fruit before the summer, which when he that looketh upon it seeth, while it is yet in his hand, he eateth it up. Now the Syrian army is going to rush in there. Things are going to look real good. They're going to take it all. By eating the fruit that looks good, they're going to rape the women. They're going to capture the children and the women, and they'll probably kill all the male children and take the females, take them into slavery, head back to nations they've already conquered, and move the Israelites out of their land. Replacement and deportation was a big deal in this era. You take people away from their own land and you put them in another land to where they can't long for the land they come from. They do long for it, but they're not living there and they can't go back. So sooner or later you break their spirit and they give up. That is one of the advantages of captivity over colonization. When you colonize a people, they're still in the land and they'll rise up against you and kick in your teeth like we did to the British. Padoom. Just a point of reference there for you and all my British friends. Assyrians are going to come in. They're going to pluck the fruit. They're going to rape the women, take everybody captive, kill all the men, steal all the gold, drink all the wine, all that prosperity that Ephraim thought would protect them, that they were celebrating over while they worshiped their heathen gods, sacrificed their children, and believed the lies of false prophets. We have made a covenant with death. We haven't got there yet. It's in verse 15, but this is the chapter for that great exchange. We have made a covenant with death, meaning God says, I have disannulled your covenant with death. You made a covenant, but I broke it. I like that. Was it Augustine? Maybe. I don't know. Some church father said God proposes and man proposes and God disposes. Was it Thomas Aquinas? I can't remember. I read all that stuff back when I had a brain, and the material's still in my head, but it's hard to remember who said what. But they're just going to get eaten up. The Assyrians are going to come and destroy them. It's going to pluck up their civilization as if it were summer fruit, as if it were early summer fruit. What is one common thing about fruit that's on the vine, but it's too early to harvest? Well, a peach may taste like a peach, but it's hard, and it'll hurt your tummy. Same thing with green apples and figs that haven't plumped up yet. They make you sick. Sometimes they kill you. They were drunk and living in their prosperity and looking out on their fields like nothing would ever change. It would never be any different. Tomorrow will be the same as today. We can pay off the Assyrians. They won't come. We're making too much money here. We could pay them all the ransom they want. We can be tributaries to the Assyrians. But see, when you're prosperous and rich and you got time to stay drunk all the time, you're so idle and living off your wealth and your slaves and your servants, you just think you can pay everybody off. So you go to Egypt and you hire an Egyptian army to fight against the Assyrian army, because the Egyptians and the Assyrians are already fighting battles here and there over who's going to control the world. The only reason that Egypt couldn't defeat the Assyrians in this 30, 40 years, 50-year struggle, or Assyria defeat the Egyptians, because they were so far apart. Assyria won some battles, so did Egypt. Assyria won enough battles to keep Egypt at bay. Egypt would not be destroyed from being a world power, and they wouldn't recover for another nearly 300 years, 200 years, 260 years. Egypt would recover under the Ptolemies. But it wasn't until the Battle of Carchemish where Nebuchadnezzar put Egypt in their place, and that was in 605 BC. More than 100 years after we're talking about in Isaiah here. But the rich, the drunkards of Ephraim, the people who ran the country, they were so prosperous. They were paying off the Assyrians not to attack. And they got to thinking, well, if we put a little money in the Egyptians, they'll go whip the Assyrians for us, and then we can quit paying anybody. We can have all the money. We can be even more prosperous than we are. Well, the Egyptians lose a couple of major battles and quit fighting the Assyrians. In 740, 738, 732. And so they back away, and Assyria comes and conquers Ephraim, or Israel, the northern kingdom. Ephraim believed that their prosperity gave them a get out of jail free card, a free ride, that nothing could happen to them because they had the money to pay off anybody. But you know what? You can't pay off God. And God decided, because of their wickedness, he was going to destroy them, and he used the Assyrians to do it. And at every step of the way, Israel just made it worse on themselves. Well, we will pick up this again tomorrow. I thank you for coming. God reward your faithfulness, your devotion to study. I don't say these things to hear myself talk. I already know what I think, and I already remember what I know. The whole object of this is so that I can somehow transmit what's in my head into yours. Whether you agree with me 100% or don't agree with me at all, that's not important. The important thing is that you have the information to consider. It is the Word of God. And at this stage of my life, it's the best I can do with what I have. I'm grateful to you for listening. God bless all y'all, and we will resume this again tomorrow.